With us today, we have KSL librarians and digital scholarship specialists, and they're here to share their perspectives on generative AI's intersection with information literacy, which is the framework that guides how we teach students in research to seek, find, evaluate, interpret, and cite information and resources that support their learning and research objectives. You also hear about some generative AI tools to explore and potentially leverage in research and digital scholarship. And to set the stage for all of that, we'll start with a little bit about copyright and AI. And I will, like I said, let the presenters introduce themselves. So,
hi all. Can you hear me okay? Let me know if not. My name is Karen Caputo. I am the Scholarly Communication and Copyright Librarian here at the Kelvin Smith Library. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the issues I'm following around copyright and generative AI. I do like to start, though, to say that I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not providing any legal advice. And if you need legal advice, please talk to our Office of General Counsel. But I'm going to jump right into it with the first issue, which is training AI models on copyrighted data. I'm sure many of you already know that these models are using a lot of copyrighted material to train. And there is some according to some of the copyright holders, including publishers and authors and creators, this is infringement on their copyright. And if you ask the AI companies, they are actually saying that this is, allowed under an exception in copyright law called fair use. Who is right will be decided by the courts. Many of these copyright holders have filed lawsuits against these AI companies. You've probably heard about a lot of them because there's been a ton. And we won't really know who's right in these until the courts decide whether it is fair use and is this exception or whether it is infringement. I will say, though, that a lot of these AI companies have already started to decide that they might start paying for some of this material because of some of these difficulties with these copyright claims. And this made a lot of news over the summer because some of this included some scholarly publishers. And so some of our scholarly publishers are already going into licensing deals with AI companies to license content for this training. And some of the academic authors of this content were pretty surprised to hear about this. And that's because they weren't really consulted on it by many of these publishers. But usually publishers can do this because in scholarly publishing, it's pretty commonplace for authors to sign a publication agreement that gives broad rights to the publisher or just transfers fully copyright to the publisher. And so that enables them to be able to do this. If you are interested and you are someone who publishes, it might be important to know what the copyright policies of your publisher is. So I recommend, before submitting, actually looking at what their copyright policies is. I think sometimes people overlook that. And also reading your publication agreement when you get there. But this was quite a big thing on academic Twitter. The next issue I kind of want to talk about, along with thinking that a lot of these creators and a lot of their lawsuits are also alleging that not only is the use of copyrighted materials for training infringement, but they're also saying the content that is generated using AI tools is also infringement. And that is another one of the claims that they're making in their lawsuits. That is also something that I think the courts will decide, but it is kind of an interesting, and we'll decide whether these outputs are actually substantially similar. I think there's some questions about whether they really are substantially similar. They can be substantially similar, but is it a large-scale problem? I don't know if that's exactly true. But of course, that's something that these cases will be looking at pretty closely. For users of these services, it might be their responsibility also model to determine whether something is substantially similar or whether it's been copied from another source. It is possible for some of these outputs to be, copies of or to reproduce some of the materials that are copyrighted, and it might be on the user to catch that rather than the AI company or the service provider. So we'll see. But the other thing that I'm kind of interested in too is around these AI generated works is their copyright status. In the US right now, the US Copyright Office has said that anything generated by an AI is actually not copyrightable, and that's because copyright requires human authorship. So they're not eligible for copyright protection, which is kind of interesting. But it's possible they could be. It just requires some human authorship to be involved. And so one of them might be you could arrange or compile AI-generated content in such a way that the whole work is copyrighted, but not the individual items that are AI generated. A good example of this is there's actually a graphic novelist who created a graphic novel using AI generated images, and they received copyright protection in the graphic novel as a whole. They received protection of the arrangement of the AI generated images and the text, which was theirs, but the images themselves were not copyright protected. It is also possible that you could modify that AI-generated content to such a degree that you meet this human authorship requirement. And so basically, if you're trying to get copyright protection for something that's AI-generated, the more human authorship and the more human intervention you have in that, the more likely it is to be copyrightable. This is not really a copyright piece, though, but you also might want to just check the terms of service of any of the AI tools that you're using to make sure that you are allowed to use them and you do own them. But that's just kind of a side note that I wanted to mention. So I know that was really quick, but wrapping up, this is just a really evolving area. And since there's so much pending litigation, we'll see what happens. But this also might be some other things that affect this in the future. The U.S. Copyright Office is studying this issue and releasing a report. So we'll see what the results of their study are and how that affects how they go about copyright, but also how it might affect how legislators go about copyright and how this works. So I don't have a lot of answers, but hopefully we'll have some of these in the next couple of years as some of these cases wrap up. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Olivia.
Hello. My name is Olivia Hobbs. I'm a research and engagement librarian here at Kelvin Smith Library, and my presentation will be on building foundations, information literacy in the age of AI. So I think the best place to start for that is what actually is information literacy. If you're a librarian or around librarians or around the library, you've probably heard this term thrown around a lot, but I think it's always good to start with a singular common definition to work from. And in this case, I will be using the Association of College and Research Libraries, which they define information literacy as the set of skills needed to find, retrieve, analyze, and use information. And I believe, I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, that this definition was originally from a document they published in the 80s. As you can imagine, the set of skills needed to accomplish these tasks have changed pretty radically in those 40 to 45 years. We have moved from navigating physical card catalogs and physical books to online databases, and now the ever-evolving and quickly changing internet with the world of information at our fingertips. So as those skills have changed, the fundamentals of finding, retrieving, and analyzing and using that information has not. And so an example of an information literate individual, the first step to being information literate is you're able to identify that information need, to be able to specify the question that you are asking, whether that's a research question you're exploring in your paper, or let's say your car has broken down, but you don't know why. It's really important to be able to say, you know, that check engine light did come on last week. That may have something to do with it. Once you have that information need specified, you're then able to access the information efficiently and effectively. And I think this is where librarians really stand out. We do these tasks, we practice these skills pretty regularly in our lives and our work. So we're able to use these platforms and use these skills effectively and efficiently. If you are just getting started, if you're using new platforms, or you're just developing these skills, you might be like, wow, this is really overwhelming. It's taking me 20 minutes and I don't think it should take that long. And so that's what we as librarians are always happy to help get you started on that, help you practice these skills, as I'm sure other information experts in your life would. And then once that information is accessed, being able to evaluate those findings and say, is this author credible? Do they have expertise? Is this coming from a trustworthy, credible source? And then deciding those next steps. So if you've decided, actually, I don't think this is from a credible source, I need to find an additional source to back this up to verify my findings. Or maybe you've realized my information need wasn't quite phrased the right way. I need to find new keywords and adapt my search. And then, of course, you want to be able to use that information. So if you are writing a research paper, to be able to convey the findings that you have, to support your argument with the evidence you've discovered, or if it is your car's check engine light, being able to tell the mechanic, hey, this is what I have. You're the expert who will be able to use that information and hopefully fix the vehicle. And then throughout this process, understanding the ethical, legal, and socioeconomic issues. So Karen just pointed to a few of them with copyright, what AI platforms and different internet is being trained on, the access of information, and of course, socioeconomic issues. The internet is posited as a freely available resource, which we know is not true. On a college campus, we have access to so much information and so many resources that are typically behind paywalls. So all of those things come into play. I also want to talk about what AI literacy is. That's not the topic of this conversation, but the terms are very similar. It's easy to see the crossover, and I want to get the distinguishment across. So according to the global nonprofit Digital Promise, AI literacy is the knowledge and skills that enable humans to critically understand, evaluate, and use AI systems and tools to safely and ethically participate in an increasingly digital world. This aligns with the definition of information literacy with the tenets of understanding, evaluating, and using, just in regards to specifically AI tools versus general information. However, I do find it interesting that this definition specifies humans as doing these things. I don't know if the ACRL just didn't anticipate technology reaching this point when they gave their definition of information literacy, or as I believe that information literacy is a purely human trait, something that technology still has not quite evolved to, as will be discussed in this presentation and the next one. So with these definitions, with these skills, to know how to use them, to know when they need to be put into play, it's important to know where AI is showing up. I think when this topic first started being discussed a few years ago, you had to seek out these platforms. You are not encountering AI if you are not using ChatGPT or other platforms yourself, but now it is creeping into more and more places in our digital world and our everyday lives. So the first one I want to talk about, the one I think most people are encountering, the one that is really changing the information landscape, are Google results. So hopefully we all remember the time, even just a few months ago, when you would put a query into Google and you would get a ranked list of pages from the internet that you would sift through and choose yourself. A few months ago, Google started introducing AI and saying, we know what you're asking. We also know what you want. Here's the answer we have chosen for you. So in this example, I have asked the question because this went viral a few months ago. And I said, well, that can't possibly be true. And indeed it is. Who invented the backflip? And Google tells me, according to TikTok, John Backflip was the first person to perform a flip in 1316, attracting people from across Europe as spectators. However, William Frontflip later led a movement to convince the public that he was better. I hate to disappoint everybody. There is no historical evidence for this fact. As Google AI is telling you, it's according to a TikTok. When I first asked this question a few months ago, I did not have that framing. It simply told me that John Backflip was a historical figure. And it has now introduced sourcing. So it's not only telling me according to TikTok, but it is linking me directly to the TikTok, which is a plus. It has evolved to that method. However, Google is clearly incapable of evaluating the TikTok. As a platform, anybody can post on it. That includes experts and scholars, historians. It also includes people making parody videos and jokes, as is the case with this one. But prompt engineering, the way that you are asking these questions, also matters. So if I ask who did the first backflip, it now gives me some flip-flopping. It says it's difficult to trace the origin of the backflip. However, I'm still presented with the answer of John Backflip. It's now linking me to a YouTube video as the source. This is the same video. It's by the same creator. It's on the different platforms. Don't know why Google is choosing one over the other. That's on their back end. But it's also giving me more specifics about people in gymnastics and bicyclists and motocrossing. And I also think it's interesting that it's not providing according to framing for these answers, probably because they can be verified by multiple sources instead of a singular YouTube video. So those sources are linking to Wikipedia pages and news articles and articles about both the person and the sport. Again, who did the first backflip? No longer getting answers about John Backflip. It is giving me a Wikipedia page about freestyle motocross. So it's assuming that I'm interested in this specific topic when all I asked about was the specific move of a backflip. And again, different question, different answers. These are all changing rapidly over the span of a few weeks and with the way I'm wording the question. And now I'm being directed to a YouTube video about free runners. So Google is assuming the aspect of the question I'm interested in and not really giving me what I'm looking for. Another place AI is showing up are social media accounts, and this is in a few different ways. So the first are platform-specific chatbots. It was announced last year that Instagram was creating AI accounts associated with celebrity likeness. So Tom Brady, the football player, had an AI Instagram account called Brew, and he was posting, I'm guessing not Tom Brady specifically, but like Meta was posting AI generated images. And you were also allowed to talk to Brew, Tom Brady, however you want to think about it, to discuss sports and different games, and he would rag on your team. This seems to have been phased out. All of those profiles that were associated with celebrities are now deleted. But there are other platform-specific AI chatbots such as Grok for Twitter/X. And this one has a specific personality. It's been advertised as a humorous chatbot, a platform to engage with if you're looking to have fun, not necessarily getting serious answers or conversation. There are also public-facing AI accounts. So this is an example from Meta. It is a Jane Austen account. It is not positing to be the author and historical figure Jane Austen. It's just a random woman in the image that's been AI generated. But it is designed to appeal to the fans of Jane Austen with generating content about literature and writing and women. And it does say that it is a page that is AI and managed by Meta, and AI hashtags are used throughout all of the content. There are also AI chatbots that have been designed to support real people's accounts. So on Instagram, influencers or celebrities with millions of followers who they do want to engage with that audience, but obviously don't have the time or energy, can now train chatbots on their specific voice to answer questions that they need and to avoid specific topics that they don't want to. So now their followers can engage with an AI of that real person. But of course, there are also impersonators of AI social media accounts. These accounts are designed to mimic what the account of a real person would look like, but they are completely AI generated with imagery and text. And those are usually used to push cryptocurrency, misinformation, and other harmful content. They could include links to malicious websites or advertise products for people to buy. And usually these will engage with each other as networks to kind of grow those interactions and replies and get more famous on the platforms, but they'll also engage with unrelated users who for the most part are real people. So if you are active on social media, you probably recognize you're getting pushed a lot of content from people that you don't necessarily know or recognize. Some people hide their identities on public platforms for safety concerns or because they're just interested in talking about a specific topic without necessarily having their self associated with it. And so it can be difficult to tell what's AI generated content and what is real people on the platform that we should or should not take seriously. So there are two methods of detecting this content. In the study I came across that was looking at about 1,000 bot accounts they discovered on Twitter/X, they used black box detection, which is when they were training classifiers to distinguish between human-generated text and AI-generated text so that they could distinguish the patterns between the two and be able to classify them as one or the other. Obviously, this is difficult to do on an individual level for multiple reasons. You need a really large data set of both types of text, and you need a lot of classifiers to distinguish those patterns and come to agreements together. There's also white box detection, which is when AI must use a watermark in its content. So for image generation, having a watermark in the corner or overlaying the photo, ChatGPT will sometimes reply as an AI language model. That can unfortunately easily be cut out. But for a lot of these accounts, that was the number one way that these researchers were finding them, was by searching as an AI model, because it would slip through in a tweet or two. And then it became clear from looking at the account that the rest was AI generated. And when I conducted this search myself last week, I pretty quickly came across an account that is just tweeting links and images of a headband on a counter. I'm guessing they're trying to sell that item. I did not click on any of the links because I was on my work computer, and I don't think UTech would like that very much. And of course, AI being used as writing tool. So AI is posited as both a tool for authors or a way as to author articles. This is an example that went viral last year of somebody was reading an article published in a journal from Elsevier and came across this note in the article. Please note that as an AI language model, I am unable to generate specific tables or conduct tests, so the actual results should be included in the table. The person who discovered this called it out as a failure of the peer review process, that this should have been caught in copy editing, a failure of both the authors and the publishers to let this come through to publication. I'll discuss in a minute why or why not that might be true. But AI is also being pushed as a way to author articles and to generate online content. So from BuzzFeed, everybody's favorite internet source, they are really big on the AI initiative. This is an example of an article where Buzzy the robot, BuzzFeed's AI creative assistant, has the byline and is advertised to have written this article. Interestingly, if you scroll past this title and past the video advertisement, which is why I couldn't include it in the screenshot, you do get a byline that this article is collaboratively written by Emma Heger and Buzzy, our creative AI assistant. No word to what that collaboration was, if Emma was just prompt engineering the content, if she copy edited it, if she included her own lines. And as you can see, she is not getting that front byline. She's just included a few lines down. So they're really pushing for that AI authorship. And another place where we've started to see AI pop up is in PDF readers. This is in both platforms posited as PDF readers to download articles into, and then it will provide summaries and ask questions for you. But it's also showing up in more established platforms such as Adobe Acrobat, which is where this screenshot is from, where when you're reading a PDF, you are provided with an AI assistant that urges you to ask for summaries or ask clarifying questions, in this case, a list of the 5 most important points of the article that you are reading. However, AI always has the danger of misinterpretation. You'll see the note at the bottom of this. AI-generated responses may be inaccurate or misleading. Be sure to double-check responses and sources. So this does include an increase in the workload, even though I think this posits itself as a shortcut or a way to save time. Not only do you and should you read the article yourself first for understanding, once you've asked the question to clarify, you have to go back and check yourself. So while it might be useful as a study tool or an encouragement of digging deeper into the text, it's not necessarily the time-saving device everybody might be wishing that it is. And I think this really gets at the value of reading for understanding, exploring different texts, and coming to your own interpretation versus just knowing something and being told a fact or being told a reasoning and just accepting it as true without necessarily your own interpretation or evidence to support it. And so something to consider when you're coming across AI on different platforms or throughout the internet is the policies that are in place. Karen talked about this a little bit. With platforms such as ChatGPT or social media platforms like Grok, thinking about what information they have access to. It's definitely become a concern for authors and other people who are putting content on the internet, including people posting their everyday lives on Facebook or on Twitter, that content and that text may now be used in AI chat generators and used for that information without people's consent. It's also worth considering whether these platforms are advertised as having a specific voice. Like I said, Grok is pushed as having a humorous tone. If you know Elon Musk, the person who owns Twitter/X and is kind of pushing Grok, you can imagine the responses that you would get or the kind of information it's interested in and whether or not that aligns with your information need. And when thinking about publishers, both as a reader and as an author, when or how do they allow AI? So in that example from the Elsevier journal, Elsevier does allow authors to use AI for clarity, readability, or to generate tables, as was seen in that article, and it must be disclosed. So that article is actually an example of following the Elsevier policy that got through peer review and copy editing processes. If you are uncomfortable with that as either a reader or author, it's worth looking into those policies and then making an informed choice about whether you're going to engage with that content or support those journals. And then those are my references if you're interested in looking further. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Daniela Solomon, research and engagement librarian.
And I'm Shaza Beydoun. I'm also a research and engagement librarian, and our presentation today is going to be on empowering students in using and evaluating tools. And just to make Karen happy, this presentation was actually created by Canva AI, so that's my copyright speech today. Okay, so today we'll cover a range of topics related to AI literacy and library resources. And our presentation will highlight valuable library resources for students and faculty. We will explore the concept of AI literacy. I know Olivia set that up for us, but we'll just take a look at it very briefly. We will also be looking at the practice of prompt engineering, which again, Olivia alluded to. We will showcase some methods for evaluating AI output, because that is, just be honest, that is what you're here for. No, I'm just kidding. Including the two systems in Navigator's Map and a technique called the Sculptor Stone. And throughout our presentation, Daniela and I will try to give you some practical insights and examples to help you better understand AI tools in academic settings. Okay, so let's begin with our library resources. I honestly think this is the best thing you came to see here. I'm just kidding. Librarians at Kelvin Smith Library have created a very comprehensive research guide for both students and faculty, and you can see a screenshot of that here. And we're not going to have a chance to go through all of the guide, but the guide is super important. It offers an overview of what artificial intelligence is, including its history and fundamental concepts. It explores AI applications across various fields, including healthcare, finance, and education, so it's very multidisciplinary. It includes a discussion of the legal, privacy, and ethical implications of AI use. And it does provide resources for further learning, such as books, articles, and online courses, as well as information and tools and software that can be used in AI research and development. I really encourage you to explore the guide. There's the link there. I know the slides have been shared, but if you want to go right there right now and bookmark it, that would be awesome. It's researchguides.case.edu/artificialintelligence/home. And also check the guide constantly. It's being updated all the time with new information, so please do that. Okay, so building on Olivia's earlier discussion on information literacy and AI literacy, let's explore the concept of AI literacy in a little bit more depth. So AI literacy is a subset of information literacy. Just like we have data literacy, AI literacy is the subset of information literacy, and empowers users to engage critically engage with AI systems and tools, fostering this very deep understanding of the capabilities as well as the limitations of AI systems. Now, Olivia did allude to the digital promise, and this is an infographic from Digital Promise, and it illustrates these three modes of engagement, what are known as the three modes of engagement frameworks. And these are a sort of interconnected system for understanding, evaluating, and using AI applications both critically and efficiently. And while we won't be able to cover all the aspects of these three things today, or these three frameworks, it is important to know that AI literacy is grounded in core values that emphasize: one, safe and effective use of AI tools; It really centers human judgment, and that's the piece that both Karen and Olivia and my colleagues are trying to get to today. And it does center justice, all types of justice in AI application use. And the actionable practices of understanding and evaluating AI focus, which is really what Daniela and I will be covering today, focus on elements like data privacy and security, information, misinformation, and disinformation, as well as these ethical considerations when all of us use AI. Okay, now to Daniela.
So the first part of prompt engineering is what it is. So prompt engineering is the practice of designing and refining input to effectively communicate with AI models with the goals to elicit accurate, relevant, and meaningful responses. Now, because the way a prompt is structured significantly impact the quality of AI responses, these models generate output based on the patterns they learn from vast data sets, and is by experimenting with different phrases, context, and constraints. So what are the questions for a prompt engineering to answer? You have to ask who I am, because it defines your role, your perspective. Are you a student, a researcher, engineer? And this helps in shaping the tone, complexity, and relevance of the AI's responses. What is the context? Refers to the background information relevant to the task or question. And it could be a specific field of study, a situation we're dealing with, previous discussions. What is my goal? Clarifies what you are trying to achieve. Do you want to learn, solve a problem, get creative ideas, or perform a technical task? And what do I want the AI to do? And specifies the action or type of output you are seeking from AI. Do you want it to summarize, generate, and analyze, or provide step-by-step instructions? And I'm going to give you now an example of bad versus good. If you look at the left-hand screen, you are a really bad writing student because it is not giving enough information. I don't know where to start, so please write the entire paper for me. Introducing the main arguments and conclusion, makes sure to include citation and references and pick up whatever topic it is. And also, I need to be at least 10 pages long and formatted in APA style. It's like, yeah, sure. On the other hand, I am a college student writing a research paper for a writing course. We have been discussing topics related to energy. I am particularly interested in exploring the impact of energy, renewable energy sources such as solar or wind power, on reducing carbon emission and their potential to replace traditional fossil fuels. Please help me craft, please. Please help me craft a compelling argument that addresses both the benefits and challenges of transitioning to renewable energy and how this shift might affect economic, environmental, and social aspects. So you can see the difference between the two different prompt engineering. And based on how these prompts engineering are written, that's the type of answers you are going to get. So in the guide, we are having the evaluating of AI output, and in there you're going to find lateral reading, SIFT, and robot. Does anybody know what's lateral and SIFT? I guess not. So what is lateral reading? Lateral reading is a method where used to evaluate the credibility of information by reading across multiple sources, then relying on a single one. So what do you do when you read laterally? Leave the site that you are on, cross-check the info, investigate the source, check references, citations, and consider the larger context. It is good when you cite, when you read, to do this because it needs to get some more information about the page at hand. SIFT is stop, investigate, find, and trace. It's a method that provides a framework for lateral reading. That's a move forward for lateral reading. And it's stop. It means before trusting information, investigate the source, like before, find better coverage for diverse perspectives, and trace the claims back to their origin. Another one, which is kind of new, complete the, it's a move forward for lateral reading. It is a robot, which is means relevance. Is this a source relevant to your topic or research questions? Is it objective? Is the information presented objectively? Although I have an issue with this. Bias, is it the source from free for form and doesn't have an agency? Origin, who is the author or organization behind the source? Timeliness, is the info that up to date and appropriate for your needs. So all of this have implications for how you evaluate AI.
So the Navigator's Map was developed by a faculty learning hub, and it offers a very straightforward method for examining AI-generated output and cross-referencing this output with trusted external sources. Daniela in the slide before talked about lateral reading. She talked about SIFT and robot. Those are sort of known methods for double-checking AI output. These are supposed to be a much more simpler, this is supposed to be a much more simpler way of checking AI output. And the technique is very close to lateral reading. And to understand the way this Navigator's map works, I'm going to give you two analogies. So the way you want to think about this is AI output is a map. AI user is a traveler. And the verified source is the actual landscape. I love the poetry of this. I'm very proud of this. The other analogy to think about this in terms of the Navigator's map as a way of critical thinking and evaluating AI is to think about AI output as a blueprint and AI user, as in us, are architects, and the verified source is the actual building site. And hopefully we're creating a very strong building site so nothing falls. Now, the Navigator's map method involves 3 steps. It includes observation, questioning, and comparison. The observation piece of it includes analysis of AI outputs, their AI outputs, their features, and the details. The questioning part of it is the process of brainstorming questions about the outputs, accuracy, and relevancy, and that's where things like lateral reading come in. And cross-referencing is this, or comparison is this idea where you compare the AI output with information from other reliable sources like textbooks, databases, and of course I have to give a shout out to our library catalog. So let me give a very brief example here. A student might use AI to summarize the major events of the French Revolution. I'm a historian by training. Everybody knows the French Revolution has a lot of twists and turns. So this could be one way where you could use AI. And then the student can use sort of that summary from AI to verify that the information to verify this information against trusted sources like JSTOR or again the library catalog. This process helps learners identify key information, formulate questions, and recognize that AI, unfortunately or fortunately, cannot self-verify its accuracy, all of which, again, underscores the importance of centering human judgment, as we talked earlier in regards to AI literacy. Okay, so let's just put that in more concrete example and use the navigator's map process. So here I'm going to give a much more detailed example. Let's assume that you are an undergraduate student taking a class on race and technology. In fact, there is a class being offered this semester on race, technology, and gender. And I decided as an undergrad I wanted to write, I hope none of the students are in here, but I wanted to write a class about racism and AI, but my professor suggested that I narrow the topic even further because, of course, you can write books on racism and AI. And in this scenario, you can see a screenshot of this here. I asked Microsoft Copilot to suggest ways to limit my topic because my professor told me it's too broad, and to provide me with 2 keywords that I could use to run searches in the library catalog. And of course, Copilot offered me 4 possible ways to limit my topic. It offered me suggested that I look at examine historical context, look at specific AI applications, examine popular culture representations of AI. Those are very scary, in case you didn't know, and analyzing some case studies. But for this example, I just decided I would stick with number 2, and I was going to pretend that I became interested in AI and facial recognition. And you can see that here from the screenshot. Okay, so after running that initial search in the library catalog with the 2 terms, AI and facial recognition, and of course, you can imagine, I got thousands of results, but I did follow through with that because I wanted to try to sort of think about this as an undergrad. I asked Copilot to give me even more specific terms. And the idea here is that research, and this is what we try to teach our students, is that research is a very iterative process, right? Nobody gets it at the first try. And the navigator's map critical thinking approach asks us to continually question and refine the AI output. So Copilot this time suggested, and I highlighted that, to use the terms facial recognition and accuracy disparities. That accuracy disparities is, I'm familiar with that, but thinking from an undergrad, they may not know that that's the keyword they could use. And I asked it to give me some article suggestion. That was in my second prompt, but you don't see that here. And it gave me more magazine-like articles. But if I was an undergrad, of course, my professor would have asked me to give or provide academic journals. So I took the 2 terms, facial recognition and accuracy disparities, and I ran that in our library catalog, and I kept it very broad. I didn't use subject terms. Again, I'm trying to replicate the undergrad experience or the way of looking, put those in quotation marks, and I got 600 results versus the thousands of results I was getting earlier. And of course, with the 600, I could further sort of limit my, refine my results through filters like publication dates, subject areas, geographic location. So this is an example that that is that sort of demonstrates how the navigators map, this sort of critical thinking process, combines the evaluative tools like robot sift and lateral reading to help students assess and refine AI regenerated information in the research process. But it's a very simple process that they could do at class, that faculty could teach students.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about review criteria, evaluate, and refine the prompt. So in this case, review is the initial step where you assess the information provided. So you ask AI to provide you whatever topic you have, and you should carefully reading or analyzing data, arguments, or solution generated by AI. The goal is to understand the context and content, ensuring you grasp the underlying details before moving forward. Evaluate. After you read all this, you need to include questioning the validity, reliability, and relevance of the content. For example, does the AI generated response align with established knowledge? Are there gaps, biases, or logical inconsistencies? Evaluating requires comparing information to existing knowledge and determining its strengths and weaknesses. Reprompt is based on the evaluation. You may decide that further clarification, refinement, or additional information is needed. Reprompt refers to the process of refining your input and asking additional questions to the AI in order to provide the quality or relevance of its response. And because he said 1 minute, you can say, I am an engineering librarian, and it's about working on an engineering design project to create a more efficient energy storage system. So what does it mean? It means review. After you review the outputs to assess whether they meet your project requirement, while the AI provides a variety of solutions, you may analyze them to determine which ones are true. Then evaluate is the AI design suggestions for weaknesses or potential issues, such as material durability or long-term efficiency, and move on to reprompt after it's refined to use this. For example, you might ask it to prioritize durability over cost or suggested alternative materials. So coming to this, I don't know who was there. It was said about AI is a predictive tool, and it needs output. Its outputs need to be interpreted and refined by human users based on established criteria. It cannot be done, not yet without the human power. So with this, thank you.
Hi, I am Ben Gorham. I am the Research Data and GIS Specialist here at KSL, and I apologize for my voice. I'm also recovering from bronchitis right now, so please forgive me. And because I am the GIS Specialist here, the Geographic Information Systems person, I hope it's not surprising that I'm going to be talking about GeoAI today, Artificial Intelligence in GIS Systems. Since it is a terribly broad term, I only have time to focus on this one aspect of it now. However, the capability and utility of GeoAI, they do find purchase and application in a wide range of disciplines, industries, projects, research trajectories. So hopefully, wherever you're coming from, whatever your academic industry, your background, or aspirations, you'll find something worth learning a little bit more about today. And if so, come talk to me. One of the challenges that I've been seeing that our researchers encounter when it comes to working with AI is the challenge of choice and access. Too many competing products or tools to choose between, ambiguous advantages and limitations. It's also not unusual for there to be some administrative mandate that requires leveraging one tool over another, or situations in which the barriers to finding and using the best tool for the job are just too difficult to overcome. So what I want to show you is a brief introduction to a suite of resources that are already packaged, installed, and ready to go in software that we already have available for all of you right out here on these computers in the Friedman Center, and also on our cloud platforms. So no choice paralysis, you can just load them up and start using them right away. GeoAI is an ecosystem of resources that leverage, among other things, deep learning libraries for complex tasks like image recognition, feature identification and extraction, or prediction, and the generation of new data sets, features, and rasters. So basically, we point it at images, we point it at data sets, choose the deep learning or other related packages we want to run it through, and we'll generate new data for us. The GeoAI tools that we have ready to go can find a lot of utility across disciplines and industries. For some examples, urban planners and engineers are modeling the impacts of urban development, understanding the availability of resources to the population, forecasting road and infrastructure deterioration, and proactively taking action. Biologists, geographers, and landowners can use GeoAI to generate data and statistics about the volumes and types of species of trees without a time-consuming on-site inspection. Public safety specialists, law enforcement, are making communities safer by predicting where accidents are likely to occur and generating optimized emergency response times for them. And I have some live websites that I want to show here as well. Just to kind of provide some context while I'm talking here. We're seeing business specialists and economists using these tools to generate insights and predictions that drive better market planning, site selection, supply chain efficiency, and customer intelligence. So just, enjoy these little looping GIFs here that I've got for you. There are three main patterns that GeoAI is using to kind of make these impacts. These are just like from all of these industries that I've been discussing here. Either object detection, prediction, or pattern detection. Object detection includes detecting objects from imagery or videos like you see here. It's recognizing cars, trucks, motorcycles, pedestrians, feeding that data into a live web map that is then kind of bringing it all together, agglomerating it, and then spitting out more information for people to use to manage their city infrastructure. You can use this kind of thing to detect and document the locations and features of things like fire hydrants, solar panels, specific biological specimens, vehicles, power lines, and infrastructure in 2D and 3D, different types of vector and raster formats. It also applies to land cover classification, generating data on land use from aerial imagery. This is just some more fun stuff. Look at that. It's like reading all of the cracks in the road and then updating a map to show where they need to apply intervention like in real time. Love it. Love it. Here's another fun one to look at. Here we go. Or change detection. What has changed over time and how? What buildings are new? How have fields changed? How have forests changed? How has erosion affected a landscape? All of that stuff can be processed through these GeoAI tools. For prediction, this is for like predicting geospatial events and phenomena. Where are new events likely to occur in the future based on patterns in current geospatial data and in the past, and then analyzed alongside a series of criteria to help with that prediction. And then also pattern detection. Statistically significant clusters and patterns of things that exist in natural landscape or in a built environment. This will generate new rasters or new data sets documenting those patterns and those distributions of phenomena. And I want to say just for a moment, like we treat a lot of these AI tools, these Gen AI tools specifically, as things that are incredibly new and novel and wow. These have been here for a while. We just didn't always call them that. So you might already be doing AI work. We might have had researchers that have published things built on deep learning models that they didn't even know were deep learning models. So congratulations, you're all already AI researchers, probably, but now we have kind of a better ontology to understand them in and to categorize them within. I threw an ontology just for you, Kate. So these tools that we're seeing here, they are generally helpful to perform tasks and generate new outputs much more quickly and efficiently than manual processing typically would. They can be scaled up pretty powerfully, and they can help streamline the workflows for a lot of different projects. Today, I'm just going to take us through one basic example of feature extraction using deep learning packages in ArcGIS Pro. because we don't have time to do a bunch of different ones across a bunch of different research questions. So I'm going to head back over to the slideshow. I would like to have been able to do this live, but that's just not the way today is running, and that's okay. Instead, I have screenshots for you. That's not correct. Yes, it is. I just got to move forward. There we go. So this is a screenshot of ArcGIS Pro. This is the industry standard heavyweight GIS software package that we have on all of these computers down here. And the kind of data that you can work with in a GIS can be really anything. We can talk about terrain, biology, ecology, business, engineering, climate, health, population, infrastructure, etc. The only thing I haven't been able to find an application for is the field of pure mathematics. So if you're a pure mathematician, you want to do some GIS work, come talk to me. I want to see if we can make it happen. And this is the deep learning packages that support the work that we're going to do here are also loaded up on all of these machines to my left. So whereas other more frequently discussed and kind of like in the limelight applications and expressions of generative AI, they involve the creation of images or text, the Gen AI that we're going to leverage here results in new data sets, new statistics, and new predictions. One of the advantages that this provides is the obviation of the manual labor that has traditionally gone into creating these kinds of resources, generating building footprints, road infrastructure, species distribution, incident mapping. All that kind of digitization work has traditionally been done by hand on a computer, one thing after another. But with the growth of generative AI, machine learning, and deep learning tools, it's now a lot easier and faster to do it with these resources. Bearing in mind, of course, that the models that inform these tools were still built by extraordinary amounts of human labor and capital in the first place, but that is a different conversation for a different day. For this example, we're just going to imagine a research project studying the Tongan village of Kolovai. We're going to analyze its built environment in this area because maybe we're doing some sea level change risk assessment. Maybe we want to calculate the impenetrable surface area for rainfall and runoff, identify building densities for new facility installation, or measure access to other resources, any number of things. But instead of manually tracing each building from the aerial imagery to generate an analyzable data set with customizable attributes, which is what you typically have to do, we can just deploy the deep learning tool, detect objects using deep learning, which you can see on the right side of the screen there. So again, these are just screenshots, but in ArcGIS Pro, in the analysis tab up there, you can sort through whatever kinds of tools you want. There are hundreds of these available that are just ready to roll out, tutorials, walkthroughs, instructions built in right next to them. Detect objects using deep learning is just one of them that you can use, and it's easy to go. This is all you really have to do to make this work, is we tell it what imagery we want to study, and that is going to be this, say that didn't quite come through correctly, but this imagery of Kolovai here, some aerial imagery of the downtown. We're saying we want to output the detected objects as a layer of features of vector data, and then we pick the model definition. What deep learning model do we want to use to identify those buildings and then output this layer? And this is really the big thing that matters here. Looks like I don't have the slide for that, unfortunately. But there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these deep learning libraries that are ready to go. You can be using them to extract building footprints from nations across the world. They're custom trained per geography, effectively. You can use them to find shipwrecks. You can use them to detect seabirds in Africa. You can use them to find elephants that are walking through wherever they're walking through. It doesn't matter. If you've got the imagery, you can point to any of these hundreds of deep learning libraries, and it will find the items that you want to study and then output a data set for you to then analyze. So running that, then you have all of these little arguments and criteria parameters that you can specify and modify as you need to. We don't need to worry about most of them, but they can be really useful for experimenting with and performing more precise feature extraction. The only one that matters for me is not visible on this page, unfortunately. Actually, you know what? I can fix it. Hold on, everybody. Can I just go up? Nope, I can't fix it. Never mind. But, oh, there they are. Yay. There's a bunch of the lists of the different deep learning libraries that you can choose between. So car detection, there's power lines, there's different types of trees, there's anything you can imagine. They've probably got it or someone's working on it right now. But one parameter that I always do want to specify here is the non-maximum suppression overlap ratio thing that basically says if two features that it identifies overlapped by a certain percentage, they're probably the same feature. It made a mistake, delete one. So I specify that. And then very quickly, it outputs a new data set of these buildings that I've now highlighted in red here. This is now a modifiable attribute table. It's a vector data set. This can be exported. This can be enriched with other information. This can be used to generate statistics very easily about the average size, the density, the clustering, the relationship with other features in the landscape, so on and so forth, with just a few clicks of a button, instead of having to spend hours and hours and hours digitizing all of these things yourself. And it might not look as glamorous as, like, making a unicorn or a purple rabbit or whatever we're going to see in a few minutes, but it is really, really useful for researchers who would typically have to do a lot of this work by hand, and especially if you imagine then using similar packages to identify other features in the landscape so that we can study their relationships with each other. And I think you can also see right here, like right next door, I ran a similar one just to find palm trees. So if you're a forestry person, if you're a farmer, if you're an ecologist, a biologist, this kind of thing, you can just immediately pull out all the palm trees in a given area. And you can see that there are some mistakes. It didn't get every building exactly right. It missed a couple of the palm trees around the edges here. That's okay. I just told it to look at this one specific plot, and either way, it's going to be a lot easier than having to do it all by hand. Depending on what kind of machine you're running it on, it can take anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. So, use one of our computers or use a really good one, but also be aware that while what I'm showing you is on the ArcGIS Pro interface, these tools are also available in the cloud interface, the ArcGIS Online interface. So a lot of those things that I was showing you with the 3D and the cars and the point clouds and the roads, all of that is also available in the cloud. Just go to arcgis.com, sign in with your single sign-on, you're good to go. It's ready built for you. Finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit of the future of GeoAI, and that's another web page here. There's new tools being developed all the time, obviously, and one particularly exciting one for me that I'm keeping an eye on is called GeoForge. It's a tool from Ageospatial, a company in Switzerland, and this product, in theory, because it's not real yet, but they're talking about it like it's real, which we see a lot in the AI world right now. It will enable these sorts of processes that I've been talking about to happen even more efficiently and easily and quickly using generative deep learning models and LLMs combined, such that instead of having to use the tool, input your parameters, understand what the parameters mean, point it at the data set, just use text-to-speech or just use typical chatbot prompting, and it'll do the work for you. So here's an example of what that can look like. I don't know if you can see the chatbot over there, but he said, generate the administrative 2 area of Geneva. Show me all of the buildings in this administrative boundary. Each of those is a clickable feature, a clickable object now with its own attributes and features like area, type, height, size. You could add date constructed, ward, address, anything. And then similarly enriched with, go back to that. What is the latest Sentinel-2 imagery from Geneva? It shows it pulls up the rasters from the satellite stuff. This data is then easily exported into a GIS for further analysis and study, just like what we were just looking at on those screenshots. One example of what that looks like, and then another one here, just to kind of wrap it all up. This one I love. Show me the commune. This is the city. Generate me its cadastre. There it is. Well, there it is. Features about every single cell or object in that cadastre. Show me parcel number 18. There it is. So imagine being able to do this just with natural language instead of having to understand how to use a kind of a bespoke tool, right? So this is using a custom-built LLM that was trained on GIS terminology, GIS workflows, that then parses your input according to that LLM, searches for extant data that exists in response to your inputs, visualizes it for you or makes it if it isn't already there, and then outputs it and organizes it in the way that you need to continue doing your analysis. In theory, again, this is going to be live. They said we'll have the demo out this fall. It's not out yet, but I'm on the mailing list. I'm watching it and I want to deploy it here and start experimenting with its utility for our researchers as soon as we can. So that's just a couple of the ways in which GeoAI is making this stuff happen. It's a small application in a very large landscape of generative AI, but it's one that's near and dear to my heart, so I'm always happy to talk about it with more of you. And that's really all for me, so I will yield the rest of my time to the best dressed man in the room. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Bendis. I am the Creative and Media Officer here, and today I'm going to talk about media AI, or generating images and audio. And I like the term evolving talk. This has been an evolving talk for me because I'm also having a fun time playing with all of this stuff. And I want to start out by saying it's complex. I'm not going to lie, it's complex. It's really complex, and it's kind of like magic. And I mean that because it's really a cool thing to sit back and realize that while we're playing with all these tools, at some point you're like, this is wild. And don't lose that. That's one of my favorite parts of all this. So I've got some ground rules for our conversation today. And the first one is, let's start with an open mind. I'm having a lot of people getting really angry with me, especially my artist friends. And actually somebody turned to me and said, you know nothing about visual arts. And I'm like, I was a tenured art professor. Like, I know about visual arts. It's just people are very upset. Just because it's complex doesn't mean you can't do it. And just because it's magical doesn't mean you can't use it. And I think it's really important to remember that you don't have to know all the things about how these things work to get effective usage of some of these things. Some legal issues are complicated, but not all. Some moral ethical issues are complicated. Actually, all moral ethical issues are complicated. That's the whole point about moral and ethical issues. They're complicated, and we have to discuss and think about them. Let's save that for the Q&A, or you can just grab me at lunch if you want to have more conversations. Remember, I'm the last thing between us and the Q&A, or us and lunch, depending on how you look at it. Nothing is free, but nothing ever was. I want to remind everybody of that. There's this weird thing that, like, oh my God, what if free is an illusion? Things are constantly changing, and you really do get what you pay for. And it's really important because as I do these demos, every week something is different. And so it's just very, very difficult for me to keep giving a good demo for people. So how does it all work? I'm going to start with a gross oversimplification. I'm going to talk about OCR, or optical character recognition. And the reason I want to talk about this, it's a great way of thinking about how do we take a picture of text and turn it into text? Well, the computer has some assumptions already. First, it has to know how letters are spaced. Like the fact that letters are even spaced. It has to know what fonts look like. It has to know what are words. And then it gets a little bit smarter and goes, what words are often more likely to be together? I always joke about the fact that if you really want to screw up somebody's computer, just go into their spell checker and change it from English to French. All of a sudden, every word they've typed is misspelled. Everything is underlined in red. And it's a really wild thing to think about, the fact that we forget that there are some of these base assumptions that are just letting all these technologies happen in the background. And I like to start with that because it's an easy one to look at. Now, when I go to Google and I search for an image, and this time I typed in beach ball on the beach with a palm tree. Now, how does it know that that's a beach ball on the beach with a palm tree? Well, first of it is tags, metadata, all hail metadata. There you go. That was for you. All right. First of all, there's tagging. And it's really important because people will contribute and say, this is what it looks like. And the more people have contributed information, the smarter the training has become, where we need less metadata because the computer knows more about what to look at. I'm not saying we need less metadata. We always need more metadata. But the same thing happens is when we give it so much information that if I actually search for an image that Google has never seen, and I know this because this image did not exist on the internet, I uploaded this to Google, and Google guessed that I was at the top of Machu Picchu. There is not a lot of information in my photograph that would guess that it was at the top of Machu Picchu, but enough people have tagged themselves in a photograph similar to it that I was able to recognize the rock, the mountains in the background. That's really a little bit of information, but enough of it was there for it to go, I'm guessing at the top of Machu Picchu, and I was shocked. At the same time, when I just zoomed into my face, it said, I don't know who you are. Actually, it didn't say that. It said privacy does not allow me to tell you who you are, which, by the way, is pretty cool because a few years ago, it would say exactly who I was and who everyone else was with me. And the cool thing is Google knows exactly what I look like, except for our webpage, because apparently the metadata on me and our webpage says that I'm Karina Chang, which one day will be fixed. But it's metadata from the person who took the photo. But Google knows who I am. And it's really funny because in early versions of DALL-E, it would actually know who I am. That if you typed in Jared Bendis riding a dragon, it would give you a picture of me riding a dragon. And my students figured this out really early. And before DALL-E turned off the idea of putting in people who they knew who it was, there's a slew of images. Jared Bendis in a banana suit, Jared Bendis as a unicorn, Jared Bendis riding a unicorn. The student, they typed in their own name, nothing happened, but it basically knows I'm a bald guy wearing a blue shirt. Not today. So I want to talk about other language things that we're going to be discussing here today. Now, I love using dictionary terms, not as gatekeeping, but as wayfinding. I'll never say the dictionary says this, so you must. I'll say this is how I want to use these words for today. And we're going to use the term art versus artwork. So art is the expression of application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in visual form. And artwork is just illustrations, photographs, or other non-textual materials prepared for inclusion in publication. And when artists hear that word, they go, artwork. Artwork can mean anything. Artwork doesn't mean artistic. Artwork means a thing. Let's just use the term image. So today we're just going to talk about images. I'm not talking about creativity for the moment. Debates about intentionality, effort, meaning, and soul, while interesting, have nothing to do with the image generation, only the usage of the image. Your image has no soul. Yes, and a lot of people I know don't know how to draw. That doesn't change anything here. Only a machine can appreciate a sonnet written by another machine is attributed to Alan Turing. I just love that quote. So, AI images, it's not just cutting and pasting the internet. There's this weird oversimplification that when you say that you're typing something in, it's going to start, cutting and pasting all this together. That's not how this works at all. Matter of fact, the way it works is there's this diffusion module where it turns an image into noise and the noise back to image, and then it goes into crazy math, which looks like this. And no, I don't understand any of it either. And the cool thing is you don't have to. What you have to know how is that basically you're going to type in a prompt. Words. Those words are going to be analyzed. They're going to be the text is going to be encoded and re-encoded. Somewhere those images, those words are going to be turned back into images, and those images are going to be turned into an output image. So when I typed in purple rabbit on a white background, a cyber realistic module gives me the one on the top, and the Dream Shaper 8 gives me the one on the bottom. These are what are called AI models. And basically, behind the scenes, there is this engine, this source information that is being used to interpret the words and then to put the images together. The cool thing about this is when people are thinking it's scouring the internet, I've worked locally on these things. One of the images, I think Dream Shaper 8 is 6 gigabytes. That is not every image on the internet boiled down to 6 gigabytes. It's all this information boiled down to 6 gigabytes from all this other information. Local and free. That's where I want to start, because what I'm interested is not paying per use and not paying for services and not paying for the cloud. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out how I can do this local and free. Free, by the way, it's still using up an enormous amount of computer energy. I get that. Sort of. So for local and free, I want to remind you that open source is free to download and install, but open source still has rules and restrictions. The things that I'm creating, I still have to read the fine print. It requires a powerful GPU or video card, and they are expensive and they generate a lot of heat, and they are expensive and they generate a lot of heat. Lots of components to install and keep up to date. The number of things I had to do to get my computer to do this was staggering. They're constantly evolving and changing, and software keeps being abandoned and vanishing. So one thing I did today, no one's working on it tomorrow. And literally, there are tools out there that last year they were all the rage, and now they're like, no, we've been bought, we're not going to touch it anymore. Tutorials are constantly out of date, and aberrations, aka hallucinations, need quality control, which is an enormous amount of work. Every time there's something wrong, I have to fix it, which means I have to spend the time to do that. So there is this trade-off between, do I want the OCR to scan the document, or do I want to just type it in by hand? And by the way, as things get better, you start asking yourself, which is the better use of your time? I'm working with a program called Invoke AI. Invoke AI, by the way, allows me to run it free locally, though they do make their money by having a service online. And it's based on the Stable Diffusion model, which is the big model for AI image generation. Invoke AI is sort of a curated, really nice, beautiful front end. Now, when I say Stable Diffusion models, the idea being is there are so many different of these models that have been put out there for people to work on, and each of them has their own different flavor of doing things. I keep going onto this, which website is this? I don't even remember. I keep going and looking up like what are the greatest models of this week, and there's like literally curated lists of them because on Hugging Face there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different models out there. Stable Diffusion XL is this one ginormous model that has everything you can imagine in it, but people are looking at the Mitsuha Diffusion 1 model, which is only based on public domain sources and things that people are now allowing to opt into it. The thing about this model is, in theory, this model should make everybody happy because everything is free that was contributed to it. But right now, it's not a very good model, but we're getting there. It does not give good results yet. But the idea being is that people are paying attention. Some people would still be worried about it because it was based on the previous models, but we'll get there. So where are we going to go? Hey, look, bearded man biting stalk of sugarcane. This is actually a picture of me getting dysentery. This is not a joke, by the way. As I bit into it, I said, wait a second, I wasn't supposed to do this, and then got violently ill. So the last smile for the next 3 days is right here. But I like using this photo. And what am I going to do with it? I'm going to go, you know what? Let's go and do text to image. I just turned to it and said, give me a picture of a bearded man biting a stalk of sugarcane. And this is what it came up with. I did not say, by the way, give me a picture of a white man, but it automatically made one because there are internal biases to the models that I used. And these are 4 different models, by the way, using the same basic engine, though fascinating results. No editing here. There's also something called image to image, where I gave it my picture, no text whatsoever, and said, just replace this picture with another picture. And that means that it looks at the image, converts it into text, and then takes that text and converts it back into an image. And this is what it came up with. And they're wild. I mean, it is wild, the results here. I specifically like the fact that they're the ones using a finger instead of the thing. And of course, that's not me. Actually, none of these are me, but it's really kind of interesting what this does. There's also this concept of infill. Infill is where you basically say, replace this section. Now, I did not tell it what to do. There are no text prompts here. It's analyzing the image and just guessing which to fill the blanks in with. The first one did a pretty good job. The second one, well, it didn't. And we'll keep talking about these as we go on. The next one is outfill. Outfill is where I say, you know what, make the picture bigger. Expand around me. Now, notice in all 3 of the examples, it actually fixed my hair when I had hair. But I don't know what that thing above my head is. Also, notice that in the second example, my hand started getting bigger. Like it doesn't know it's a hand, so it's just going to make that thing bigger and bigger. But this idea is, why is there a bald man in the background in 2 of those images? That's like, let's put a white bald man in there because weird how 2 different images were generated from 2 different models. But this idea of text to image, outfill, and infill are all ways that we should be looking at image generation, not just typing in a word and getting a picture. And then, of course, if you add prompts to it, this is where I add the prompt in front of a castle. And if you spend some time with it, you actually can get somewhere a little more bizarre. And again, I didn't spend too much time with this, but the idea being is we talk about like copyrightability. How much time did I spend on this? How much human intervention? Where was I painting in? Where was I painting out? This is an AI enhanced image. This is an AI augmented image, but it's not pure AI. There is a human input and a human output. Where can I play? Everyone wants to know where they can play. Trust me, what I just showed you is not for the faint of heart. You're not going to do it in your own machine. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. The first one is one called Deep AI Beware of Ads. It's an ad-driven site. And they have 100+ different themes, they're calling them, which are basically engines designed to give you a certain stylistic approach. So I always go to it and say, you know what? Let's start off with the old dogs playing poker. I would say that the middle top one is my favorite, though I was told that it does not look like a dog, it looks more like a bear. And these are, of course, there's one that was superheroes, Renaissance, surrealism. The only prompt is dogs playing poker. But then you know what? I said, wait, what about my old standby prompt? Bearded man biting stalk of sugarcane. And at least here, we do not have exclusively white people, which is nice because, again, that's all I typed in, but none of them quite what we started with, right? And again, this is just text generation. Now, what about Photoshop? So I went over to Photoshop and did the same thing, said, hey, what about a bearded man biting a stalk of sugarcane? Really interesting to see how that's interpreted. And of course, I figured why not add it in front of a castle to see what it would come up with. Now, what's weird about this is Photoshop has been doing some cool things for years. When content-aware fill happened, it was all the rage. You highlighted it, hit delete, and it filled it in based on what it was guessing. And that's what content-aware fill looks like. but not anymore. If I say generate instead of content-aware fill, this is how it fills in the blanks in these situations. And boy, the teeth on these things are amazing. And I just kept going, no, try again, no, try again, no, try again, no, try again. And by the way, no, try again, that's me. I'm the one saying no, try again. And at one point we're looking, going, look at and again, think about what it's seeing in my teeth. My teeth are open and I'm biting. So all it knows is my teeth are kind of weird looking. It doesn't know what my mouth looks like closed. And this is what it's come up with. So these things you can do right now. Generative fill is part of Adobe Photoshop and it's pretty wild. You've heard some weird things that Adobe Photoshop has been misusing people's materials. That has actually been clarified. It's not true. The source of all of the Adobe generative materials have been properly licensed. Whether those licenses were taking advantage of people is secondary to the fact that it actually is legal. Next, AI audio. AI audio is more than just text to speech. Why AI audio? First of all, AI audio allows you to have a consistent voice, a variety of options, anonymous audio, and you can have books read to you, which people really love this idea of having things read to you. This is a generic clip.
Hello there, my name is Jared, and I am not saying this.
That was me. That was not me speaking, but that was a commercial service. But this is what happens when I give it a sample and I try to have it trained.
Hello there, my name is Jared, and I am not saying this. It sounds like me, but isn't exactly like me. But does it sound like a computer or just someone you don't know? A stranger? There are so many good things you could do with this, and bad as well. The library is now closed.
I'm the voice of the library. But think about this. If all of a sudden you could just go, you know what? We don't have to ask Jared to record a new library message. We just type it in because we've got his model. It's there for you already. Now, can we do this local and free? Sort of. Now, AI, how does AI audio work? And I want to spend another minute talking about the fact that there is a large language model behind all of this. There's lots of words and text that goes along with, and LLMs can be trained. So how do you make a really good version of your voice? Well, you record lots of audio. Then you have that audio converted to text, which we can do now. Then you have the computer match the text up to the audio, wait forever in a powerful computer to generate the model, and then you've got your own voice that you can do whatever you want with, and people are doing this. Or you find out that you don't need to do any of this and that you can take an existing LLM and tone it with an audio sample. I'm going to do this one over here.
All I need is 8 seconds of audio for this software to be able to mimic my voice. Let's see if this is enough audio for it to be able to do the job. Hello, my name is Jared. Does this sound like me? Hello, my name is Jared. Does this sound like me? Hello, my name is Jared. Does this sound like me? I can generate this again and again until I am happy with the way it sounds. I can generate this again and again until I am happy with the way it sounds. I can generate this again and again until I am happy with the way it sounds. I can generate this again and again until I am happy with the way it sounds.
All of those aberrations, I didn't do any editing here. So this idea of those weird breath sounds come in where it doesn't know what to do with the breaths. And it's not a matter of typing phonetically either, by the way. It doesn't understand typing phonetically. It's looking for context. It's looking for conversational items here. It's really, really weird to try to fool one of these things. So what about video? I was prompted last time I did this. Why didn't you mention video? And there's so many wild things out there. There are so many new apps that are doing AI video, but they're not really. It's all lies. Matter of fact, most of it's reverse engineered stuff. But I'm like, what are we really talking about here? Well, really, the cool things that are happening are the avatars for training. So I grabbed one of those things that I see ads for all the time, and I literally recorded a couple of seconds of my face in a variety of poses, and I give it some training. And not only did I do that, but I said, generate a script for me too. So I generated the AI avatar, and then I said, generate a script about the possibilities and the future of AI, and let's hear what it has to say. Is it not happy? We tried this one. Well, apparently it's not happy, but let me tell you, it was creepy. It was very creepy. And the other one said that Roger's enter like CSS feeds, RSS feeds. No, the trick to it is this, and I can see if I've got it here. I can do this on my phone. At least you can hear it, even if you can't see it. Here it comes. AI avatars are poised to revolutionize online interactions, allowing users to attend virtual meetings and handle customer service as photorealistic digital versions of themselves. These AI-powered avatars will adapt to contexts, express emotions, and even represent users in virtual worlds. However, as avatars become more advanced, new ethical questions arise around ownership of digital likenesses and preventing misuse. The future of AI avatars is both exciting and concerning, as they will transform how we engage online in ways we can't yet foresee. I didn't write that. I didn't say that. The eyebrows, I could have trained away from that. I could have kept a little bit better, but it's staggering. And so the trick is that is it better or worse is the question you have to ask yourself. Because when you use mechanical screen readers, they're just mechanical screen readers. And if the idea is like, well, and I have friends who are voiceover artists, they get very angry. You're like, you're taking away my work. And I'm like, wait a second, we were never hiring you. Like, it has never been, Jared, hire a voiceover artist. We're going to, no. So the question is this, is if I have the opportunity to have something read along with me or had something read to me or have, where it sounds, again, not like a machine, just like a stranger, is a difference between the two. Anyway, we're at the beginning of the very strange journey. There are lots and lots of tools out there. I had to totally cheat to make that happen because I did not subscribe for $25 a month to do that. It was just a quick little demo for you. And there are lots of tools. And let's see if I got another slide in here, right? I think I do. There it is. So much to learn, so much to do. Thank you.
Is anybody interested in asking any questions?
Hello, thank you guys. I'm Erin Smith and I work for the library, so I know them all very well. Karen, I am interested in what's the international response in copyright and AI, if that's at all, I'm just curious what's happening there. And Jared, I'm really curious about, since I have the mic and can ask 2 questions, I guess, I'm really interested in what have your artistic friends said as far as proprietary companies exploiting versus creating and enhancing the human in human tech?
Yeah, so there have been some differences in countries. I believe it's in Japan, for example, and I hope that is right, actually. I'm pretty sure it's Japan has already said that training AI models is on copyrighted content is fair use. That so I've heard that before, that some countries are just taking that, that they're going to say that. Some other countries, like in Europe, are actually saying that you have to do sort of a licensing regime. So you have to pay if it's a commercial use. If it's a non-commercial use, then you can use it without paying for a licensing the content. So it's kind of interesting. There are some differences, but I know we're going to see a lot more probably with what other countries are doing. Yeah.
The artist stuff is weird. It's not only are the artists being defiant, because my friends are like, I'm going to lose my jobs. Some of them embrace it. Some of them get that this is the future, that if you're thinking about the fact that, like with the Invoke AI, you can feed it your own models. And if you feed it your own images, you can have it draw in your own style. So you're going to be creating your own database of work that allows you to do things. So in the future, there will be artists, just like there will be content providers, whose job is it to feed the AIs, which is what people who do generate data do anyway. On the flip side of it, you're seeing really nasty culture war type responses to it, where you're seeing things like made by humans being stamped on boxes. In the sort of made in the USA way of saying, like, we need to go overseas type things. So it's kind of a mix of how people are approaching it. Most people are very threatened by it, but instead, I'm very much, every generation learns to use tools differently.
I have a question for Ben. Are these filters in ArcGIS, are they open source or do you purchase them?
So they are Yes, so they are included in our kind of university-wide organizational subscription to Esri content. If you want to get information about how they were generated, like their training information, who publishes them, all of that, thankfully every single package and model and library that's in there is accompanied by its own item details page in the ArcGIS Online kind of ecosystem, and you can trace back exactly like who created it, when, how, and any limitations on its use. So they are free to us in that someone's already paid for them, but the user, the end user, does not have to do anything else to get access to them.
I'd just like to invite you to explore the opportunities, possibilities in education or in a university. So, for example, I have used these avatars to give presentations. One of the things you can do is have your avatar speak in Hindi or Urdu or Italian or things like that. So there are a few other languages where I'm okay, so I can check. So I have just provided a text, and there I am speaking, and I say, speak in Spanish. And there I am speaking in Spanish, and the face moves with the appropriate motions for Spanish, and do this in French. But of course, I can't check the Hindi or the Chinese. The interesting thing about this is you don't have to sit in front of Zoom and record yourself. Remember the pandemic when we had all that asynchronous stuff that we put up there, we recorded? No, I had an audio transcript of a lecture I gave once in a class here, and I sent that transcript to one of these things, and it turned out me, giving the class in any other language. Talk about resistance. You have worked for multiple educational establishments. I regard this with delight, but what's the feedback from chat?
I have a great one, because when the university started recording classes, there were two professors that were teaching freshman courses that were both approached. They were big, giant seminar courses. They were both approached to record their classes, and they were friends. And one professor was like, put me on videotape, and there are tons of videotapes, and he's passed away since, and they're still being used because it's whatever. And I had another professor who said to me, they ain't never gonna videotape me. I am not gonna be replaced by a videotape. And I said, if you can be replaced by a videotape, they should fire you now. Because you are more than that. Like, you are providing more than just the talking head. You're providing more than just this idea of where the value add is. If you had to give, I always joked, again, through the pandemic, my favorite example was I recorded an enormous amount of video, because I keep telling people asynchronous Jared is a lot more fun than synchronous Jared. And I send people a lot of video. And yes, you can be forever young in an animated version of you, and I don't have to shave, and I'm always wearing a suit. And so all these things are possible if that's your priority. But we do have to look at these things on the other side of it, which is when I leave the university. I'm never going to leave. But if I were to leave the university, who would own those materials? And so this always becomes a matter of the dark side of things. But the light side of things is pretty easy at times.
All of you are really working closely with students and faculty as they do their research. And I'm wondering what sorts of questions or concerns you're hearing come up as they start engaging with AI tools as part of their research process. Or maybe what are you learning from our students and our faculty as they integrate this into their work?
Please, not everybody wants.
Everybody looked at me. So I think we have this idea that all our students are using Chat GPT, and they're finding it very useful. They're copying and pasting and doing all of these things. The reality of it is that actually students find some of these systems cumbersome, and they're not using it to plagiarize, but they're using it to brainstorm. That's been my experience so far.
If last year I heard about students using for I don't know, getting references and such. This time, I don't hear anything about. I don't know what that means. I don't know whether they learn how to use it or they don't check, or I don't know. But nobody comes to me with this kind of questions.
I have the other approach to it, which is the students don't feel it's cheating if they're bored by the assignment. The students don't feel it's cheating if they don't see value in what they're doing. And so what we're having is this renegotiation that's happening when I'm talking to faculty members about, well, my students what are they getting out of it anyway? Like, this is basic educational design. Like, what are their learning objectives? Are they right? Are you really wasting their time? Have they just called you out for it? And is the fact that these tools are making it easy for them to do that? On the other side of it, as soon as these things stop being free, people will stop being lazy again.
Yeah.
This is all about, no one's willing to pay money to do these things, to not write their term papers. If it's free, they'll do it. If it's not free, they won't touch it.
Not yet.
I will just say, I taught a class last semester and I told my students, part of your assignment, you have to write about a social media phenomenon. When I put this into ChatGPT, it said it could not read from social media. Therefore, I don't think you'll be able to use it. And a student informed me, I pay for ChatGPT and it can use social media. To which I said, I'm not willing to put my money forward. If that's your business, I will take a closer look at your paper when you turn it in.
Did you get more backstory on why they paid for it?
I didn't really want to inquire.
That's the best part. That's the best part.
I'm seeing the way that I apply my AI in education in collaboration is generally in that kind of a GIS environment, just because that's what I do. And what I'm seeing is the people who had to do it the old way are so excited for these new opportunities, these new ways to streamline and be more efficient and to get to the meat of the project sooner. But the students who never learned how to do it the old way are just like, okay, it's just another tool. Instead of clicking these other boxes, now we click that box. And so there's sort of a presumption of, I mean, entitlement is the wrong word, but that's just standard. This is just becoming more and more what they see as the way to do the work. And that's really interesting.
I guess one way I've heard people talk about this in my area is also around open access, because I am a big proponent of open access, and people seem to think that just because something's open access, it's sort of a reason not to actually make their work open access because it might be gobbled up by one of these AIs. It's probably happening whether your work is open or not, though. So I'm not really sure that always makes a whole lot of sense to me. But I also think that there's some really interesting research applications, and we should want really high quality data that is our academic data in some of these models, because it'll make the models better and easier for us to use also in our own research. So I see also that benefit, but I've definitely seen people talk about worrying about making their work open because of it. Yeah.
Thanks. Very nice presentations. I was, as a faculty member who teaches a course, I'm comforted to hear librarians talk about emphasizing the importance of information literacy. And I think that sort of can take students back to first principles, because if you tell them, be careful of the information literacy, they're likely to say, what are you talking about? And when you can go through an outlined list of, you have to check this for this and make sure that everything lines up and it makes sense, I think this makes AI a fantastic new learning tool. So thank you very much. One question I wanted to ask is that, and I think Shaza, you mentioned this, is about its predictive capabilities, because I've looked at some literature recently where ChatGPT was prompted to make some predictions about a future event. and it basically said, we're not capable of making predictions about the future.
The prediction.
The prediction. If you say so.
What
So
was that quote?
yeah. So what we've seen so far is, as you know, ChatGPT is until 2019 or something. So of course, whatever it's after that is not gonna be guessed. How students have to know what they have, what it is, and what can do, what can be done with them. But also, it's how to say, it's there are tools that they know already. So that's the problem. If ChatGPT, the free version, is not available to them and they can go this far, and I think there is a ChatGPT O right now. It gives me some examples for some stuff, and then it says, "Oh, you've finished your code of ChatGPT O," and then moves me back to ChatGPT. So it depends on how much they use it, and if they use the good tools, that's fine. If they don't, it's not fine. But you can find them if you want them to be found. Yeah.
You're also talking about the guardrails that these companies are starting to put in place. You know, the fact that DALL-E knew what I looked like and now doesn't is a safety precaution. And so when it's like, make a prediction, they're like, no, I'm not going to do that because you're probably part of the media and you're going to say I said something horribly, blah, blah, blah. It's trying to make it so that it's not sounding stupid. And so some of these things are literally guardrails that they're like, no, we could do it, we're just not doing it in front of you, we're not letting you do it. I think we were having this conversation ourselves about what happens when you say something where you say to ChatGPT, I'd like to hurt myself, you know, it's going to go like, well, here's how to do it, versus like, here's a suicide, hotline type thing. So some of these things are being constructed, and then what ends up happening is people go, well, who put those guardrails on? Why are you constructing these things? Whose agenda are you following? They're all sort of out there, but they're always there. That's always been there. It's not just pure data if you don't want it to be, because we know what happens if you let Twitter feed you.
Yeah, we've moved on from the topic where I tried to raise my hand in the back, but I want to bring it back to it. You mentioned, I think the conversation said that once this becomes paid, students are going to stop using it. I think there's always a point where anybody says that's not worth my time and I'm not going to do it. My kids pay each other to do their chores for them when they don't feel like doing them themselves. So, and I think it's also the university and every university's goal, or should be, to make sure that there's equity for our students, right? So if there is a paid version out there that the haves can get access to, we need to make sure that everyone can have access to it. So we have to prepare the way we teach and educate, assuming that everyone has access to everything, and try to get everybody there.
That's the big paywall conversation. Take the AI out of it, right? We have access to our journal articles that other people don't have journal article access to, and the accusation being that that's where we spend our time. And that's why Karen's work is so important, to make sure that we're being able to do more than that. I think that's part of that conversation.
Roger.
Can I just add on this point that this is what I see in the classroom, is the divide between the haves and the have-nots. I have access to all of the latest frontier models that do anything. But you can have access to ChatGPT 4.0 and all of the bells and whistles for $20 a month, and it's tax deductible. Now, when you consider what parents pay to send their children here, when you consider what they will pay to get them SAT training and so on, so they can get in here, and what they need to do to get them grades, the frontier models are not limited at all. You can say, check this on the web, search on the web, go to this. If you have a preprint that's a PDF, you just say, consult this PDF, draw on this to answer this and that and the other. And the people who are using it use all this stuff all the time. And it's very slick. And the people who don't use it, and that's part of that's the reality on the ground here at Case and every other university I talk to.
So I think that brings up a question as to how soon is the university going to have to pay to have access to ChatGPT for all students and faculty? And I think a second question that comes up is that the usage of these tools is computationally expensive, so I've heard. And so when that happens, how soon are the servers that we have in the university, well, I guess we would ask, going to melt down, or when they can't keep up?
So the answer is already. We have a partnership with Microsoft, and we have access to Copilot. Everyone on campus does. Copilot is built on OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0 and is constantly updated to the newest version. That's there. That's been in place for a while. So you go to copilot.com, put in your case ID, and get access to it. That's been announced a couple of times in different places, but nothing hits everybody. I have 1,000 unread emails too. So yeah, but it's there.
Yeah.
So one thing we're working on from the library side is trying to set up a few trials of some research, Gen AI research tools, one of which is currently there's an open version Claude, which some of you may use already, and we heard about it in today's presentation, but there's an enterprise version that we're going to try to get a license to do at least a trial. And when those trials become available, we try to make that widely known for students and faculty to test them and give us feedback. And then we can decide on which of these tools is the best for us to invest in from the library perspective. The other one we're looking at is Research Rabbit, and Elicit, I think, is the other one. And we'd hope to kind of get those set up and launched by today, but we're still working with the vendors of those products to get the trials in place.
I would disagree with Elicit, but that's a different story.
Well, you're welcome to tell that story now, Danielle, if you'd like.
The thing is, it does it brings up old websites, and I'm not keen on that. It's just not.
Well, and I think Danielle brings up a good point of why when we bring up new databases or products for the library, from the library for students and faculty, that's why we like to do these trials so that we get a number of experts who are in there really using them and looking at them and telling us, why this one is better than that one.
But this isn't related to AI. I mean, the same thing happens when people talk about, did you look at anything other than the English scholarship? Did you look at anything? Did you look at the international scholarship on this topic? And the answer is, well, I don't speak French, so I didn't look at it. Well, the French is all there, and it's all been answered, and the French scholars know all the answers to the question of the topic you're looking at. You just didn't bother to look at it. And of course, now AI lets us do that better. But that's the point that all this type of things are about, where we draw the lines and how recent your research is and things like that. And yeah, and that's a great one going in. Like, when you did your search, what was the limit of it?
Yep.
Can we ask each other questions?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask Danielle, actually, you mentioned in your presentation that you you took issue with evaluating output as objective. Like the objectivity, you were like, I don't. I'm just curious. You wanted to talk, if you could talk a little more about like.
With the robot, you mean?
Yeah.
That's a question for me because robot is new. They keep saying, "Oh, it's just this good, amazing thing," but it's not. I can't see how you can measure the objectivity. It's not possible. I personally don't think how you can do it. What?
I think the gentleman wanted to say something.
Yeah, I would just jump in here, and I'd say that objectivity requires some evaluation of what you've found. And subject matter experts are the ones that will run experiments to find out whether something's objective or credible.
The test itself says who made who made it, who created that data. And that's where the problem is, because it could be somebody that's not trustful and could be somebody that is trustful. And it's not possible from my point of view, but it is there and we put it in the guide. So whether it's
So we need better mechanisms for evaluating objectivity before requiring people to do so.
yeah. It's not something that's easy to be done.
It's also asking the person, or the user, the students to make that judgment call, and that's not possible because sometimes we don't know where this output is, where the information is coming from. So I think it's placing a lot of burden on the student to come up with this information which they don't have, and that comes back to the context that you need to have as a user, and centering that human judgment piece of it.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to additive versus subtractive. Is research additive or subtractive? I think my students, when they start out, they're like, I didn't use this source, I didn't use this source, and they're feeling bad that they left things out. And we're like, that's part of this. You don't include everything you've touched. You include the stuff that you want, and you have to use the stuff that you don't. And so they view it as only gathering those information and not excluding things. And that's a mature item, being able to edit things down. And so this idea of additive versus subtractive, that comes up in all of these technologies that we run into, and we're just facing it at a way more, granular level. I think the other one that I always personally run into is an author that I was using for many years with my students. When I went to spell their name right, I found out that they were the primary authors of 9/11 denier materials. And I go, these are materials they'd written in the 80s, but now, am I allowed to use them anymore? And I always approach my students with this, and they're like, wow, we'll just assume that he wrote these before he got the crazies. But I do full disclosure that this person in the 1980s wrote these really good mathematical recreation books that are completely fine, but then if they go and follow his path, it gets weird. These are things that we have to make decisions about as well, and the best way to do that is full disclosure. The problem with AI is what we're not getting is full disclosure.
I'd like to thank our library-led panel today and all their conversations.